doing this 100% without restreams. Usually we use restream to push to YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook
Okay.
simultaneously. So we're
Right.
doing this all inside of the host system this time. Did all the scheduling and everything.
As opposed to what you had, like middleware, you had some kind of.
We did, yeah. We used a few different pieces of software to make Refresh Friday happen. And I think
Oh, okay.
this one that we use for the actual event that you're in right now has finally grown robust enough to maybe we can do it all through it. This is
Nice.
so far, knock on wood, everything's worked as it should.
How has live attendance been? What's been the biggest number of live attendees this year?
Just shy of 100.
That's a good number.
Yeah. That's not the average. That's been some of the larger shows, but the views usually come the following week. So we do it on Friday, obviously, Refresh Friday. And then come Monday, and usually by 2 weeks after the show, the bulk of the views are in. And we've seen a massive climb in view counts in 2023. Massive.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Well,
last
we
time
always
you
try to
were on,
tune in if we can.
you probably broke over 10,000 views last time.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, very good. Hopefully, it's good content. All right. It is
You
going to be
usually have
yours.
some. So I keep asking you to come back, man.
All right. I appreciate the exposure.
Of course.
When you're a consultant, if you're not talking about yourself, no one is talking about you. So yeah, any opportunity.
Yep.
I always have to apologize to friends, and they're like, "Oh, I saw your post on LinkedIn," I'm like, or on Facebook. Sorry, it's kind of the world you live in when you're trying to, build
Well,
a brand and keep customers flow in.
not to blow smoke up your ass or anything, but you and I met a long time ago. We've known each other for a long time. We've had certain people that probably never in a million years would I have thought they'd have been who they ended up turning out to be. Either on the show or sponsors, etc. And he's just like, wow, how did that happen? But I always feel confident that having George on, we're going to have the same George year after year after year. it's not something's not going to happen like 6 months from now. We're like, oh my god, I had no idea he was like
3 seconds.
Good.
Word.
Yeah. So let's get back to Jeff blowing smoke up George's ass.
Everyone likes a little bit of that, I guess.
Yeah, and we remain huge fans and share dealer refresh with our dealers when they will be on a live call and they'll get stumped on a provider. You ever heard of this provider? Who is this? Or who's the how's been solution compared to eLead? I'm like, hey, go to this forum and just type in keywords, and they're like, oh my goodness, I'm good, give and then they're off on their way. But it's arguably probably the largest resource of that kind of research data. You need to get an AI bot to learn from that. That can just answer all the questions for the visitors.
Yeah. Maybe with due time. Due time. I'll let Alex do that. I keep trying to jump into the AI. I've been messing around with a few programs, plugins, and all that good stuff, but I need to get back. In
on the text or the image or both.
Just all of it. Yeah. Just AI.
Have you played around with Midjourney, the image AI?
I have not yet.
Yeah, that is you'll probably be angry for being introduced to it. It's a good way to just make 2 hours just vanish the first time you touch it because you just can't believe.
That's why I'm afraid.
Believe how amazing
that's
it is.
Exactly why I'm afraid to touch it.
Yeah. I did a LinkedIn post the other day. So you have to go to Discord. You have to use the Discord chat bot, and then you engage with the image AI called Midjourney, and then you got to pay. So it's $9 a month, and then you start all your prompts with /imagine and then a space.
Mm-hmm.
I know it sounds kind of complicated. It's just a little techie, and then you just say, Mike Tyson as a Pez dispenser, Barbie doll outfit. I mean, it just does perfect iterations of whatever you ask it. Sometimes like extra fingers on hands, and doesn't do well with ears. Sometimes the ear's a little mangled, but it's fantastic. I did a post on LinkedIn last week I said, show me an angry car salesperson in a dealership screaming at their laptop. And if you go up on LinkedIn, you'll see a post where it says, frustrated with GA4. And that was my first kind of image AI usage. But anyway, text I use a lot for outlets. It's great for building outlines. If you're trying to help a dealer with a content page for SEO, having it help you frame out that discussion, and then build some of the content if you like it. Tends to be a little wordy.
Well, you can always go in there and change it up, give it a slight
right,
edit.
Right.
They just added
Claude.
Claude
AI, CLAUDE.ai. I think that one feels smarter than ChatGPT, and especially does better, I feel, with like social, not social, but like content. Build content pages for this, or build a LinkedIn post. It's just more thoughtful and more concise. Maybe it's also free.
They just added AI and wordsmithing into emails within our CRM system. We use HubSpot, and I've been quite impressed with some of the things it's come up with.
Nice. I use HubSpot. So how do you implement that?
I think it's in the advertising hub.
Okay.
So if you're using that part of their system, it'll rewrite a social post for you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
No, I'm just a free CRM user, so no, it sounds like it may not help me. But it's great for. Great for someone who needs a CRM. HubSpot's fantastic.
What do you use?
HubSpot? The free CRM.
It's just called free CRM.
It's just HubSpot.
Oh, okay.
Go and subscribe.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I'm caught up. Okay.
I think that's their kind of entry into doing business with them. So they're like, hey, here's this free database you can use. It's feature rich, works great. It'll always be free. And then layering on managed services on top is where they make their money. But if you're do what I do, or you're starting a business, getting a CRM with dealer contacts in there, I would go and buy dealer lists, and I would find dealer lists on the internet, or go to dealer associations and buy lists from them, and then just bring it all in there, and then find a good email company that can help you kind of clean up the data and ping it and find which ones are still useful. And then I was telling someone this morning, email marketing and LinkedIn are probably the two biggest. We probably got more than half of all of our customers from email marketing and LinkedIn. It's amazing.
And dealer refresh.
Interesting.
And dealer refresh. That's true.
Huh. Well, speaking of AI, is there maybe a brief description or fill us in on how's AI working with GA4 now? Can you plug in, or are there different plugins for different insights and such?
I don't know that. I mean, I know AI is going to be used in the audience modeling and completing of incomplete data, building out audiences, calculating conversion, contribution. All those things will have some level of AI, but that's probably as far as I understand around that.
Okay.
What do you mean, like plugging in like another tool to be able to measure like paid campaigns and
paid, or just I guess predictive metrics.
So maybe another way to look at that, Jeff, is there are different dashboards to date that have taken various data components, maybe CRM data, inventory data, and Google Analytics, and has been able to put it all together. And they're usually a bunch of widgets, and they're sort of separated and whatnot. Some of the solutions outside of the car business that do business intelligence tools are utilizing AI to try and transcribe an actionable statement out of different data sources. And GA4 would be one of those data sources.
Yeah. I can see that. Okay.
So business intelligence is how it would be used, or what's been done thus far. So George,
I would think,
I said, I need to dive back into it a little deeper.
So we're talking about
in terms of
now.
Building campaigns would help too. Sorry.
A little delay there. Sorry. But we're talking about good things now. I think we should jump into GA4 issues that you've come across.
It's a lot.
Yes, I would. Yeah, it has been a ton of work. We thought that all the work would be over July 1st, but it's just it is very much a moving target. And a lot of dealers still have data flowing. I mean, now it's coming on October 1st. Months after they said that it would be turned off, I'd say a little more than half of all of our customers no longer have universal data flowing, which is nice because you can do comparisons, and kind of sniff test the GA4 and say, hey, am I getting all the conversions? Am I getting all the traffic? And how does that compare? But yeah, the biggest challenges I think are
I've noticed
one,
big differences there, by the way,
with what?
between GA4 and the old one,
Yeah,
especially in user
I'm
sessions and
sorry.
user counts. There's been a
Okay.
significant difference that I've noticed.
Yeah, user counts I expect would probably be different. We don't really measure users much, if at all, in Looker, where we bring all of our GA4 reporting into, just because the user reporting in GA4 is first click attribution. So you have to be careful. Like if you go in the reports in GA4 and you pull up user reports, if you have a shopping journey, and let's just say it's a simple shopping journey, it's got two stops. The first is paid search. The second is organic search. If you ask the user report, it would say you had 2 paid search sessions. It never changes the attribution after the first person comes in. And so it's for us, it's not as meaningful. I think Google's built it that way because they want to eventually show you more of a long shopping journey. But we advise dealers to stay out of the user reports because it will just give them misleading data. If they're used to GA3, stick with session reports, traffic reports. So I don't know. So maybe that's it, Alex. I mean, I think they really delineate users and sessions more in GA4 with a whole like source medium. In the old source medium reports we used to run. Well, now there's 2 sets, right? There's a session source medium, which is all about sessions and traffic. And then there's a first user. It has a prefix, first user source medium, or first user channel, or first user campaign. All the dimensions now, there's 2 sets. There's actually 3. I'll come back to that. There's 2 sets, one for users and one for traffic. So always look for source medium that starts with session underscore, or session source medium, session channel, session campaign. You will find some that just say source medium and some that just say campaign. If you're building like an exploration, stay away from those. Those are for app. Those are for GA4 measurement for app. So always stick with those session prefixes. Things like that are just hairy. Things like that are just hard to work through. But once you get it, once you know and you're building reports, and it becomes second nature.
Kevin says he's starting to leverage AI with lead management, averaging 500 appointments. Kevin, we got to have you on and talk about that.
The other challenge is working with tech providers. Some that I think have really embraced GA4, and some that I think dangerously. I think a few are kind of on the sideline saying, "Hey, by the way, we support our own GA4. We don't support third-party GA4. So if the dealer wants to have their own, other than the one that we own, they're on their own on that." And I really just push immediately back. I'm like, be very careful, because I mean, especially if you're a website company saying that, where's the dealer supposed to go? Where do they go for those answers? Do they hire a consultant, or do they hire a programmer or someone to make sense of it? So if the website provider's throwing their hands up, I think the dealer should probably look hard at that decision. We just went to Trade Pending a couple weeks ago. They had the vision and said, look, we want to be experts. We want our support reps to be the best GA4 support reps out there for our tool and for any needs. So we went out there and had a long working session and trained their people to the hilt, and they can still tap into us for support as well, just because they saw that was going to be a critical piece for them. And so they embraced it. I just think that tech providers just have no choice but to really embrace that.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you're hanging out with Bryce and the crew?
Yes. Well, Bryce was too busy. He's off. No, I'm just kidding. He was not in town. I was hoping to see Bryce.
I don't even like him anymore.
I'm joking. I was with their support team, so Bryce was not there. But it was a great session. Super smart folks, very engaged, and I learned a ton. So in things like that, you end up the more you teach, the more you learn, I think.
Mm-hmm. Are you doing a lot of that? Getting with maybe some of the different vendors, and they want someone to come in and really go over AI, maybe help
Yeah,
explain it.
not
Jeff's got AI
on
on.
site as much. Yeah, he's got A on the brain. Not on site as much, but have done a ton of Zooms and with a little bit of tier one, a little bit of tier two, just really anybody who the last 2 months, a lot of people have reached out and said we really need help, and so we just do like a couple hour session or whatever, and just do screen shares and show them how to set their accounts up. And once you show people how to go through it, and we've got document, we've been building a library of like GA4 docs that are out all now in the new edition book, that just steps people through step by step. How do I set up VDP tracking? How do I set up chat tracking? How do I set up DR form tracking?
Mm-hmm.
We got a good question from Rick. I'd like to echo it myself because he's asking, has anyone seen any real major benefits of the change to GA4 yet?
I have.
Okay, good. Please enlighten us.
Hey, Rick, how are you, man? Good to hear from you. Haven't seen
No,
you
we haven't
forever.
seen Rick in a while.
Yep, great guy, really smart.
He's
So Rick,
he's trying to figure out his texting solutions with eLead.
It's passing the parameters through. So the beauty of GA4 is the event parameters, and people can. I know that most people are members of the ASC council. I'm not, because we really don't. We just consume it. We're not contributing to it. We're consumers of it. We love it. It makes our job super easy, and those standards make it super easy to be able to build out VDP reporting that shows all the VIN numbers that where people landed on, to build out reports that talk about CTAs, which CTAs people are clicking on. Really anything from the VDP can be passed through. So VIN, stock number, make, model, year, date first seen, right? So building reports to show the number of leads you got on vehicles over 60 days old. And you've never been able to do that in Universal. Maybe Rick probably could with some custom programming, but the general user couldn't. And with GA4, they're not too hairy to get into and build.
And so you also have noticed in a few cases where some of the old code is coming into GA4.
Yes.
You might know.
Events, you mean, like old events?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So one mistake that I made in the first edition of the book, and if you have the orange book and you flip open to page 23, I've got a default setting that at the time, that was the understanding, was to turn on universal analytics goals and pass those into GA4. In the new edition, and it's not the end of the world if you have that on, but everybody should turn that off. The idea was, before the ASC goals, was that there would be universal goals that would be just kind of refactored, and then those would flow into GA4. That's not the case. And so if you have that box checked, you'll end up getting a bunch of noise that will flow through your GA4. So uncheck that box. But then the other damaging thing that's been going on, and I did a post a few weeks ago on LinkedIn around that, and it was titled "Google is wrecking your GA4." So if everyone's on their GA4 now, and you go in the admin menu in the very top of the center column of your admin menu, and you click on Setup Assistant, everybody should do that who's watching this now, and make sure the first 3 check marks are in there and they're green, especially the third one for I'm set on conversions, Google. I don't need your help on conversions. Because if you don't have those checked, Google's been going through and saying, oh, wow, Jeff's got this website and he's way behind on goals and conversions compared to what he had in GA3. Let's flip those all on for him. And so it really wrecks. I mean, like, page views get turned on, so it will trash that month's reporting. The other downside is that engagement rate, engaged sessions is one of these built-in GA4 benefits. I think it's a built-in metric that looks at engagement rate, and we'll talk about what that definition is. But one of the definitions of engagement rate is conversions. So if I overstate my conversions, I've also wrecked my engagement rate for the month, because it's 100%, because it was just page views. And so just keeping that in mind and really keeping your GA4 pure. Don't give edit access to anybody that you don't know that truly understands it, because there's no views. We're all working in the same iteration. So, and in a few cases, Google will uncheck those. They will uncheck those green boxes. That doesn't happen often, but maybe 10% of the time. So ones that we fixed and turned off, They turn, and so thanks to Ryan Everson's post on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, talked about insights, setting up an insight and setting a flag for yourself to say if conversions increase by over, I think the right number is 400 or 500%, so you don't get false negatives. If conversions today increase 400% over same day last week, that's the logic we're putting in, then send me an email and shoot a flare so we can go in, and Google must have done that switch. So that's another backstop. Eventually they'll stop doing that, but that's an irritant.
There's and I think everyone appreciates that you're always available by email to answer anyone's questions and lend a hand with this stuff. And real quick, and we'll probably want to do this a few times. Where would somebody go to get a hold of you, George, if they don't know you?
Yes, just Google my name, and it should be all the. I think I'm all over. I own my page one because it's such a peculiar last name. But yes, so and that would take you to Generations Digital, which would be our site, or LinkedIn page, or Amazon listings, or that sort of thing. But yes, always glad to help. And I want to make sure that I also mention so Generations Digital is usually me on the face, but behind the scenes. So my sister Suzanne has been with me for 5 years, I think, and she is just as smart as a whip. I'm the youngest of 7, 6 boys and 1 girl, and she was right in the middle, and she is just super smart.
Poor girl.
And yeah, she grew up tough, and she learned Google Data Studio like instantly, and then started geeking out on it. This was like 4 years ago, and has just built out just an incredible reporting suite. And then her son, my nephew Andy, is also working with us. He's very good at analysis, diving in the reports, looking for anomalies, and so those two really. And I don't want to be braggy, but I mean there are very few that are as far ahead as we are in terms of like that GA4 integration into Looker. And I'm just so proud of what we've done and what they've done. So thank you to Suzanne and Andy if they're listening.
Well, now I understand the
Which
name.
I was going to ask which edition of your Google Analytics book are you on?
Just the second edition. Yep, it's got a yellow banner at the top. The old one should not be available. Should be, unless you want to buy it used. I think it's on Amazon, but no one would do that. use technology books. That's a thing, I guess. DOS.
Well, you've got what? You've got what? 3 books now, right?
Yes, just 3 books. The Google Business Profile, and then like a general kind of digital marketing for dummies book as well. That a lot of great for like a dealer group owner or a general manager or someone who just wants to. I'm sick of hearing all these acronyms. I don't really understand how digital works. I wish I could read a short little book that would just make it all kind of make sense for me, so I can ask good questions. That was the goal of that book.
That's perfect.
George, we got a good question from Drew Ament. He's wondering, what are the top 2 to 3 reports you would recommend for dealers? In GA4.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, it's a great question. So the best place to start in GA4 reporting is just go in the report snapshot. And you may say like, oh, it's I don't like snapshot. They never really tell me a lot. The GA4 report snapshot is a great way to learn the way that the reporting works, because they've got all these little knowledge panels and they have questions at the top. Like, where do my new shoppers generally come from? And that's going to be a user report, because that first user piece. And as you go through that little widget, if you click on the bottom, it will take you deep into the user acquisition report. And you're like, oh, okay, now I know where to go if I have a question like that around users or first users. And then, it goes through all those. And so literally, like, many, I think early 2022, I went through that report snapshot, and really it helped me kind of understand the way they were treating all the data. But so when you go in there, it's the traffic reports. I don't have it in front of me, but as you go into report snapshot, you have, I think it's user acquisition and traffic acquisition. So go into traffic acquisition, and then when you go in there, the default channel, the default dimension will be channel. Show you all your channels: organic, paid, cross network, all those, and then just change that drop down to source medium. Of course, you choose session, source medium, and if you notice when you click on that, everything will start with session. You'll see session campaign, session user, session medium, session. If people are doing that now live, they'll see that, and that should reinforce in their brain. Yes, I have to. If I'm looking at a session report, all my dimensions have to be session dimensions. You wouldn't do a session source medium with a user campaign, secondary dimension. So you always make sure those dimensions match. I know that sounds kind of too techy for for some, but plenty on the call know as much or more than me about how that works. So.
How's the adoption of the ASC standards coming along?
I think great. I mean, as I said, I love it. It's there's some website companies that aren't participating. I think eventually they may
Really?
change and adopt it just because it's because of the benefits and because a lot of, I'm sure, dealer groups will be standardizing on the ASC conversion events and building out complex reports around it. And so, yeah, I think. But I think the adoption is great. Not all the companies are passing all the parameters through, and so sometimes it's messy. I from a website perspective, Dealer eProcess and Dealer eProcess and Dealer Inspire would be our two favorites in terms of their one embracing GA4 and being able to troubleshoot and answer questions and escalate stuff for us. But the other piece is that they build out these custom dimensions for all their customers. So what does that really mean? That's one aggravation of GA4. There's just it sounds more complicated than it really is, but within these events, and it's all event based. Within these events, you have all these parameters that live in these events, and you can't really use those parameters unless you sort of anoint them. Is the way I like to think of it. And so you go in and you build a custom dimension for any parameter you want to use, and that just allows you to pivot on that piece of data. So if I go in there and I say, well, George mentioned inventory first seen date. That sounds interesting to me. I want to use that. Well, you can't, until you build a custom dimension for that. And it's really like a 2-second operation. You name it one thing and you put the dimension as the same. I know it doesn't make sense without instructions in front of you, but it's really a repetitive job. You just knock them all out. And I think the ASC Council says 34 dimensions. We add 35 is what we recommend. And that fifth one is that inventory first seen date. We think that's a critical piece of information to put in your reporting. And so those two website companies will make it so dealers don't have to build those custom dimensions. The important thing I'll add on those custom dimensions is don't wait until you need to use those for reporting, because they'll only start tabulating once you build those custom dimensions. So even though you may say, yeah, maybe next year we'll start using that inventory first seen date, build out all those custom dimensions today, and then next year when you decide, you'll have 12 months of trailing data to use.
So you mentioned Dealer Inspire and Dealer eProcess. What about like Dealer On and Dealer.com? Is that a little more effort on the dealer's part?
Yeah, they support it, but it's just not as dependable. I mean, there's great folks, they take care of us well, but just if I were a dealer and I was being selfish, I would say those Dealer E and Dealer Inspire will make life easier to get those things done. The other companies still support it. You may just have the things we find are like you'll go in and you're like everything looks good, lead forms look good, chats look good. Like click to calls, it shows I get 1 a day or 2 a day. And, you send it to a support rep and they're like, well, they may say you're on your own if that's your own GA4. And then we escalate it. And we're like, we're not going to accept that. You got to solve this problem. And then usually it's like there's a couple Google tag managers that may be conflicting with each other, or there's some other thing at play that really like a developer has to get under the hood and find that. But it is findable. It can be resolved. You just have to work through it. But those are the things to check. Just make sure there's a reasonability in terms of the number of conversions by each conversion type: click to call forms, auto-fied forms, trade pending leads. Make sure those all kind of within 10% of each other from GA3. And the CRM, right? Of course, the CRM. Go in the CRM, look at your website leads, make sure that matches ASC form _submission. That number should relatively be the same with some exceptions.
Well, it's been my experience with most dealers. They don't realize that CRMs only attribute the first lead the customer ever sent. So,
right.
You got to understand how that works. Yeah.
Yep. Well, you're talking about click to call. What's some of the improvements that GA4 made with call tracking?
I think GA4 along with the ASC standards have really built out a whole, a catalog of events for call tracking companies to fire that will allow them not only to be counted, but if they're using dynamic number insertion, DNI, they'll be able to pass, source medium campaign data through. That's always been the case. You can always use that and Universal would do. But you would also be able to for instance, if your call tracking system had an automatic listener, the call could occur. They would wait to write the event until the automatic listener listened, and then determine if it's sales or service. And then they would write that event, and in the department in that parameter, they would say sales, service, or whatever so to be able to categorize calls better. We're not doing a ton with those yet with call tracking companies. A couple of them are brewing, but I've never seen that in action. Brian, I think Brian Pash has seen that, and he's shared some of those case studies with me.
Good. That's a big one.
Do we have Brian coming on sometime?
We do. Yeah, next month.
Okay.
Yeah, hats off to him for starting the standard. From my perspective, I mean, it's just made the whole process so much easier. Without that, it would really just be everybody would be doing their own thing. You'd have to ping each provider and say, "Tell me the events you're firing, and what does this one mean? What does this one mean? How's this all map?" Now, if the dealer switches providers or switches DR providers, there could be zero work done. There might be a tiny bit of work required. But all those events would all be named the same, and you shouldn't have to change anything.
Yeah, we'll definitely dive into that. I think the main reason we're having him on is because of his HBO special. But yeah, so that'll be a fun show. Yeah, can you maybe elaborate for the people who might not understand the ASC standards, like what they're doing in comparison to prior generations of analytics reporting, how much it's helping?
Yes, and it really the ASC standards just build out a common kind of framework for being able to what should all the events be named. So if I'm a chat provider, if I'm a messaging provider, all my events will be ASC_com_ something. It might be com submission for a lead form from chat. It might be com engagement, and then once I had com engagement, this is a common thing. Sometimes we see when we'll look at a new dealer's GA4 events. They've got com engagement turned on. That'd be counting every single chat. You would way overstate your chats, right? So in fact, what you want com engagement, but there's a parameter there with com status. Com_status is a parameter, and if com_status equals start, that's a chat start. That's super complicated, and that's a lot of what we added to the book was those specifics, because building out those custom events is can be tricky for the average dealer, and so you don't want the com engagement. You want a subset of that, and so you have to build out that kind of conditional custom event. But once you do that and you kind of understand, then your mind can kind of open up and say, well, gosh, I can count all kinds of things. I'm going to go back to that ASC document and find if there's any interesting triggers. And if so, I'm going to figure out how to build those. And so, that's the beauty of it. Otherwise, everyone would be doing their own thing, and all the on-page VDP information, like stock number, year, make, model, but they would all name it different things, so it would just, it would be way less helpful.
Definitely some good stuff in there. And it's, as I think somebody was pointing out earlier, might have been Kevin Fry, that not all of the vendors have it figured out perfectly. So it can make some things a little messy.
I was going to ask about that, because you have up to 50 secret API keys that you can use. Is that still correct?
I think so. Most dealers wouldn't use more than 8 or 10.
No. But you know what? I really haven't had any vendors call me up and ask for that. Isn't that a red flag?
Yeah, the API secret, you should have one for each plugin. So the website company doesn't need one, but every plugin, so messaging, trade, DR, they should all have their own unique API secret. So if they're not asking for that, I would wonder, are they firing ASC events? Are they passing those parameters? And this gets probably beyond my technical understanding, but the API secret, as I understand, allows the plugin tool that doesn't, it's not part of the website, it's plugged in. It allows them to consume that ASC data layer and grab those critical kind of pieces of data from the VDP or whatever page it's on. And so they all should have a unique. They can't share the same key. And so if they were firing generic events, they wouldn't need one. And if you have a provider that's not firing ASC events, that's not the end of the world. I mean, we have dealers that are using Active Engage or CarNow, or not CarNow, but I think Trade Pending can fire either ASC or generic. Active Engage can do the same thing. And early on, we had them set up on generic events. At some point, we'll convert those to ASC, but we wanted to get history started as fast as possible, and not everyone was ready for the ASC events.
And it's no small undertaking to get those in there, especially if you've got a kind of a niche tool or a product. I mean, we went through this where the workflow and maybe some of the things that you get a customer to click on or view aren't standard and not defined in the ASC. So there's like, which one do you map that to and attribute that particular click to or that event or whatever. And so it was at least in our side, it was a bit of work. It was a bit more work than we thought it was going to be when we originally started to do it. So
yeah, I hear that same thing, especially if you've got complex tools with different workflows and different triggers and things you want to count. If it's a very simple tool, then they may not need as many. So I'm curious for people who are watching or listening. I mean, there's a lot of smart people that I see. You chime in on the comments. Any interesting kind of engagement metrics that they're tracking? I mean, I have this conversation with a lot of folks that, at best, maybe 5% conversion rate. At best, 95% of the people leave the website and don't convert. And so the ability to be able to measure a shopper versus a non-shopper, or a sales customer versus a service customer, and what are some of the triggers that people are want to experiment with or are experimenting with to say, these ASC events or these ASC parameters help us be able to measure, a shopper versus a non-shopper.
Okay.
Hopefully we get some comments.
Thank you,
Brian.
Yeah. And so, George, you had also mentioned prior to the show that there might be some changes in conversion events that recently shifted. Am I saying that? Am I restating that right? This was something we talked.
The events got turned on. I can't remember. Do we do that once we were live? I can't remember. You mean like the settings? Not having the settings?
No, I mean this is even before the pre-show.
Okay.
We were talking. Let me see.
I can't remember. Roll the tape back.
Yeah, overstating GA4 conversion events is getting automatically wrecked since any session resulting in a conversion automatically engaged session. Is that ring any bells?
Yes. So if people on this call, if they go in the admin menu and they click on the middle column and click on events and look at those events, and suddenly they wake up and all these events are turned on blue, and they say to themselves, well, I didn't do that. Who did that? Who suddenly turned on all my conversion events? The first place to check is in that same middle column. Go down to, I think it's called property change history, and Google will show you who did it. So in some rare cases, we'll see agencies go in and take some extra liberties on turning on conversions. And so we both turn those off and then ask the dealer to remove their access. But then for ones you see that say system change, that's Google making a change where Google goes and looks at the dealership's GA3 account and says, wow, there's all kinds of goals that they had marked to here, and they've only got 4 or 5 conversions in GA4. Let's help them out. And so they go and turn on, they convert those to events, convert them to conversion events in GA4 and turn them all on, and your conversion spike by, just an astronomical number. And it really ruins the reporting for the month. So it automatically wrecks your engagement rate too, right? So the engagement rate, engaged sessions in GA4 is one of 3 things. One, either the user stayed 10 seconds, or they went to more than one page, or they fired a conversion event. So if suddenly Google turns on VDPs for a conversion event, then my engagement rate is super high for anybody who went to a VDP, and my goals are overstated. And so you go in that middle column and go up to the setup.
Oh, George, we lost you.
This is the third one.
No audio.
Which is all about conversions. Yeah. So if the third one's not checked, Google's going to say, "Oh, they need our help," And the problem is, they'll turn that back on. They'll uncheck that box over time for some customers. I'm not sure why, So we monitor that, using the insights tool in GA4, so that we see, at least, we catch it after a day if conversions suddenly spike.
You dropped off there for a bit, so not sure if everyone heard.
Where'd you lose me?
I'm not sure. You speak so fast.
Sorry.
But
I told myself before the session I was gonna really try to slow down.
You're fine.
You could almost be the Micro Machines guy. Remember that guy. Anyway, there was a good response to your question. What are dealers looking for? And Kevin Fry responded that he's looking for people who are engaging with photos and digital retailing tools.
All right.
Be two top ones.
Those make sense. Yeah, those make sense. There's parameters in there for slider. There's parameters for carousel. There's parameters for photos or images. That's one challenge also, is you'll see inconsistencies. Like some tools will fire it in one way versus another. And so over time, I hope to be able to unravel those and maybe, help the ASC Council be able to communicate that. And because we really want consistency. Like the first seen date of the vehicle is not consistent. It's not always 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 4-digit year. It's various different things from different providers. So you can't normalize it to be able to treat it as a date field and be able to count the number of days since that date. Did I break up there too?
No. Got you. No, I'm keeping up with the comments here. They're starting to fly in. Good ones too. Ryan Everson, I gotta share yours here. There's one little gripe that there isn't a last month option in the date range selection.
Why would they do that?
I'm almost positive. I almost want to go out and check. Did it say previous month, really?
No, every time I've gone, at least for mine, I guess Ryan's too, it's not there. I have to go in there and do the manual date clicking.
Why would they do that?
Because they're not car dealers.
Well, that's true. Good point.
So, full disclosure, we use GA4, to drive all of our reporting, but really we live in Looker more than GA4 as far as being able to produce reports. And for dealers who had, Looker reports in GA3, converting to GA4 kind of shields you from a lot of complications in the report. It's just clumsy sometimes getting through the GA4 reporting. And so if you use Looker, you're able to kind of shield yourself and see the data, visually in the same way. There's new channels. People are probably seeing that. If you see cross network, that's PMAX, that's Performance Max campaigns. And so paid search used to be one channel, and so now it's arguably 2 or 3. It's for most dealers starting September 1st. It's just going to be paid search and cross network. Prior to September 1st, you probably saw paid shopping as a channel. That was the VLA ads. Before they brought those into Performance Max September 1st. Google part of their throwing the bag over the head of all the ad agencies and asking them to run paid search for them. So that's another show. That's a different topic. But,
give us
with Google paid search.
What's the briefing on Looker? You guys keep talking about it. I'm familiar with it, but I'm sure there's a lot of listeners that maybe aren't.
Yeah, it's just the old Google Data Studio. Google bought Looker a number of years ago, and I think over time they'll probably phase out Data Studio and migrate everyone to Looker, because I think maybe it's as a better enterprise play for them. But for now, it's just a renamed Data Studio. Looker is, and you can put a number of inputs into Looker, so you can connect it to Google Ads, and there's templates out there that you can get that will you can bring in your Google Ads and look at it in a very meaningful way. Google Analytics 4 flows into it, and so you're able to visualize things better. You also it allows you to not worry about filtering in GA4. We never want to filter in GA4 if we're using Looker, because we can filter downstream in Looker and keep a pure record of the data in GA4 in case we want to undo that. So it's great. It's currently free, unless you're a big power user.
Question. So any dealership could just sign up for that.
Correct. Yes. With us, we basically everything we offer starts with that Looker DAG. So in some cases, we wrap it with consulting. In other cases, we have dealer groups that are like, we're very good at interpreting data. We just don't want to fumble through GA4, and so they just consume our looker decks just to make those decisions every month.
Well, that's a reason to get excited about GA4 right there. Just being able to, as Kevin Fry is saying, and I'm responding to his comment. Sorry, let me put that back up. He was saying he saved $3,000 a year getting rid of super metrics that needed to funnel UA data into Looker. So the old generation, and now it just goes right in with GA4. So
nice. Yeah, super metrics is not cheap.
Are you sort of a change pace here? Are you still utilizing your GMB Spy?
Great question. Yeah, I was going to bring it up if you didn't. So it has got a current bug. The GMB Spy, sniffs the Google Business Profile categories for any business. Your Google Business Profile lives in two places. It lives in google.com/maps, which is Google Maps, and then google.com/search, which is normal google.com/search. And there's a bug if you use it in google.com/search where it doesn't always bring up like the map pack categories. So it is being completely rewritten. Plus, all extensions have to be rewritten for 2024 because there's like a new platform for Chrome extensions. So yes, it'll all be rewritten, and then perhaps maybe we'll add some content, some new features to it. But yeah, I think we're approaching 27,000 weekly users. So still,
dude, that's
incredible.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What are you going to charge for that?
Yeah, it's really difficult through Chrome, through the extension world to do that. And once the genie's out of the bottle, you can't charge for something that you gave away.
Just charge 99 cents, dude.
What I need is an advertiser. I need somebody on this call may know I need an annual advertiser that I can just put a banner on the bottom of it that could just help defray some of the development costs. And they would just measure the number in it.
Donate.
Yeah, because I have a Generations Digital link on it now, and I get quite a few. I get a lot of traffic to my website. Plus, I think it's a huge SEO boost. I mean, once I did the GMB Spy, and then Moz.com linked to my site, and then SEMrush linked to my site. I mean, for people who don't think inbound links matter, oh my gosh, yeah, your organic rankings, yeah, they just leap when stuff like that happens.
So. Yep, I'm sure they do, man. That's great. That's so cool.
Thanks.
I don't know how you got so many balls up in the air. I don't know how you keep track of them all.
Well, we really haven't added much. I mean, it's been a product that's kind of sat. I think in some ways, like sometimes people add too much things to product. I mean, the GMB Spy competitors, if you download those tools, they kind of hijack your browser and they pop up when you don't want them. And I truly think that people still use it because it's a really simple, use it, now get out of my way and don't be a nuisance to me. I feel like chat's become that. I feel like someone, if anybody in the messaging companies are listening to me, roll out like a chat classic. Stop putting trade widgets. Stop making it so they can map to your dealership. Stop all these other busy widgets that get in the way of, especially on mobile, get in the way of the user. Clicking on. They just want a message. And honestly, if you compare the number that click on the text button versus the chat, and then how many then complete and engage, text is just such a small percentage because they get asked for their mobile number and they want to have anonymous chat. So honestly, I just I feel like just having a simple classic chat only. Here's a messaging button. They know what it looks like, and they can get it and get engaged without a lot of overhead.
Why is Drew saying remove chat?
Well, how many dealer websites have you visited lately, Jeff?
Yeah, the other problem is
unless
just,
dealer managed.
Yeah,
I see what he's saying.
They push forms to you too much too. I mean, I think it's also the chat experience.
Yeah.
I mean, you should be able to go up and ask about a car. Is it still in stock? Has it ever been smoked in? Without having them just say, form lead. They just shove forms at you, or just who is this again? Give me your email. It's just an off-putting.
Agreed. Yep. I'd rather consumer have a great chat experience and not obtain their information than have an average chat experience and obtain their information.
Yep.
Because I've had.
I mean, also.
There's been times where I've taken over some chats and purposely didn't go after the customer's information. and seen a handful of those people just come on into the dealership and mention that they had been chatting with someone, and they appreciate that they answered all the questions, got all their
All right,
information
yeah.
back. You know, so there's two sides of the sword on that. There's good and bad to it, I guess.
I think
Yep.
Drew's making a good point there. The ones that are outside services that can't answer those questions, they're really just lead forms.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really actual chat. So,
we've been using Active Engage for a while. We've got a pretty good rep that does a really good job at doing the best to answer the questions without getting back with us or throwing a lead form or anything like that.
Yeah, it always
and they Active Engage never gives up on a GA4 troubleshooting issue, so they have been super supportive. They were one of the first messaging providers to fire events in GA4, and they just because some of them go on and on, long email threads that last 6 weeks because it's tricky. We cannot figure it out, and they don't give up, and then eventually we resolve it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I had something I was going to mention. Oh, just around chat. I do respect dealers that fundamentally don't want to have chat for the right reasons. One of our best customers is a small dealer group in Northern Ohio, and they're a natural 4.9, 4.8 on Google for service or sales. They do such a great job, and the owner just fundamentally says, I can't add chat to my site unless I know that 24/7 a person that I personally trained will be responding. So he can't have a bot, can't have a third-party company, can't have anybody that's not on his staff that didn't go through his HR process and training, which he's a heavy trainer. But when someone says that, you got to respect it, right? And that's part of his brand.
Mm-hmm.
He does not want that customer experience to be anything that he didn't directly train or control on. So, and their business.
I can respect that. Okay. Yeah, but I'm sure as AI continues to progress, there's going to be a solution around that is going to be just as good as someone at the dealership being able to respond.
Yep.
I
think it's also important to
tell you that in a lot of cases, the AI actually does better than somebody in the store.
I hear people answer the phone. I don't know if I want them
Yeah.
chatting.
Yeah, there are a few solutions out there that are pretty strong.
But if someone calls you up and says, "What time do you close?" Do you say, "Well, hang on real quick. Who am I talking to? Can I get your email real quick?" Yeah, we're open till 7. You wouldn't, right? So on chat, why do you do that? Why do you pester someone who asks simple questions on chat when they want them to be, anonymous? It's the jab, right hook, maybe approach.
Yep. That's why I say just go ahead and take care of the customer. They'll come in.
How many dealers are calculating their conversion rate by method? That's something that we really love to do. So chat starts divided by sessions, lead forms divided by sessions, DR forms divided by sessions, trade divided by sessions, and then being able to compare those if you're in a dealer group and say, like, we know that chat generally is 0.25 to 0.5% for most dealers, unless you have chat on all day, on all your form pages, then it's probably 0.8 to maybe 1.2. Click to calls. So knowing those numbers, you'll know when they're out of whack. Like when we come into a dealership and they have trade pending and their conversion number is way low, we know without even looking. I bet you don't have all the calls to action on your SRP or on your VDP. And so conversion rate, measuring your conversion rate divided into conversions divided into sessions can help you to find kind of UI, UX issues maybe.
Good point. Who's typing away?
Oh, you can hear that? Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I was
It's like the old
to
IBM keyboard.
No, so Drew is you're refuting what we're saying, and he's right. It is bad chats, bad phone calls, bad lead response. It's all a training issue. That's right. Absolutely. But there's a couple of issues going on right now in many stores, and I'm sure they're not the stores that Drew works with. Drew's stores are very sharp, including probably most of the dealers watching and participating in Dealer Refresh are very sharp as well. But when you get outside of Drew's stores, you get outside of the Dealer Refresh community, things fall apart pretty fast. And yeah, so yeah, there's also an interesting stat that came across my way the other day. I didn't realize that since the pandemic, the average dealership has gone from a little over 17 people on their sales team down to 11. I had heard it was 15%, but that's 35%.
That's a
Wow.
drop.
That is a massive drop. That's 6 people. That includes managers. It's not just salespeople. It's anybody who's related to the sales department. But that kind of loss of personnel makes training very difficult and makes all sorts of other things and efficiency and whatnot
Mhm.
difficult to accomplish. So there's that going too.
Well, and that's just not automotive.
No.
Seen that across the board.
Yeah.
It's almost
It's
like
our
a lot of
reality.
companies, customer support, their customer support departments were it's like half the amount of people working in them now.
So
Well,
George,
George,
we covered a lot, and we always do because you do speak quickly, which I appreciate. By the way,
It's a weakness. I'm trying to work on. I hate watching myself on recordings for that reason. So
you cover a lot, so you get a lot done quickly, which I
nothing wrong with that.
yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
I'm wound tight. Thank you guys for having me. If folks have questions, yeah, I mean, I can't do it. Obviously, we take care of our customers, but people, ping me on LinkedIn, Facebook here and there, and I'm glad to answer easy questions. And our goal really is to educate and make folks better, and hopefully and share. I mean, I appreciate Ryan Everson knows that he gives me all kinds of great ideas on LinkedIn, and there's plenty of people that contribute to it, and we all get better.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
Drew's
Yeah,
in
I'll get the
the
links.
way.
I'll get the links over to your page and books. I forgot to include that in the post for today's show, but I'll be sure to get those added over there for you.
Yeah, no worries. I'm going to bring a big box of books to Digital Dealer. Speaking
Oh, sweet. So yeah, you're going to
on
be
Tuesday.
speaking
Yeah.
there. Okay.
Yes, it's a 90-minute GA4 workshop all around building custom events and the whole ASC event thing. So everything we talked about around the custom dimensions and building those out and custom metrics, we will show folks screen by screen. We'll have a workbook with those screens where people can kind of go through along with the slide deck. We'll have some proctors in the audience as well that will be making sure that people keep up. But be a good learning opportunity.
Awesome. When's your session again?
It is 2:00 on Tuesday, I believe. I'm almost positive. I think it's right after. I think Kevin Fry goes at 1, so I get to catch him, and then I think I'm right following.
Excellent. Cool.
Well, and it looks like Drew Amint's going to be there. So if you don't know Drew, you should absolutely.
All right.
Have
One of
fun.
my favorite people in the industry, and you can get some very good advice from him on a lot of things. Buy him a drink; he'll love you.
Perfect.
Sounds great.
Sharp.
Yeah.
Need the feedback.
All right, gentlemen. Make it a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
You guys too. Bye-bye.